You're listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast. We're an independent, general interest bookstore putting great reads in the hands of people in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. Hosted by resident Skylighters, we're here to bring you new and exciting author conversations, group reads, and bookseller chats. Happy listening.
Hello, my beautiful and lovely listeners, and welcome to SKYLIT. This is the SKYLIT Books podcast, and I'm your host, Lance Morgan. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Jessica P. Pryde to talk about her book, Black Love Matters, Real Talk on Romance Being Seen and Happily Ever Afters. Jessica Pryde is a contributing editor for Book Riot, where she is the co-host of the When in Romance podcast and writes about bookish things of all kinds. Having earned an AB in the Interdisciplinary Project in the Humanities at Washington University in St. Louis and her MLIS at San Jose State University, she is now a librarian for a public library system in Southern Arizona, where she lives with her husband in an ever-growing collection of Funko Pops. Black Love Matters is her first book. Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm so excited to talk about this book. I mean, listen, Black love, it matters. It matters.
Does indeed.
Well, you have a reading for us today?
I do.
Oh, perfect. Take it away.
All right. This is from my untitled introduction to the book, and it's a little further on into the introduction. Skipped ahead a little bit. Romantic love has been one of the most essential elements of storytelling for centuries. Most people in the modern era have grown up on a steady diet of fairy tales and popular culture featuring the lasting power of true love and its kiss. Desire for that perfect kind of love, that happily ever after at the end of the story, is an almost universal trait for people from all walks of life. But for Black people in the United States and across the diaspora, depictions of love and romance, both true and fictional, have been hard-won for the entire 5 centuries that people of African descent have been in the New World. And for the same number of centuries, and probably for centuries to come, those who were part of the majority culture didn't see anything wrong with that because they couldn't identify with characters who didn't look like them. In modern times, the Black consumer remains in search of stories about people like themselves falling in love. According to the Pew Research Center, the person most likely to read a book in the United States is a college-educated Black woman. And to bastardize Jane Austen a bit, it is a truth prevalently acknowledged that a Black reader of any gender in possession of literary wokeness must be in want of novels by the great storytellers of Black life: Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Zora Neale Hurston; of memoirs centering social justice from Roxane Gay and Assata Shakur. Those goddesses of Black womanhood present compelling, meaningful stories that make us deeply consider our own lives and are important voices in our newfound modern canon. For ages to come, people will read their elegant, heavy-hitting analyses of the truths of Black life in America and around the world. As much as we need these books, we, as readers, viewers, consumers, deserve joy in our lives alongside the hard truths many prominent Black voices posit. We already have such a traumatic history filled with stories featuring the constant loss of love or the idea that we don't deserve romantic happy endings or any kind of happy ending at all. And so we turn to love stories. Love stories about women in control of their lives and sexuality, who are allowed to be desired and uplifted, and who get the happy ending they deserve. About Black men who don't have to succumb to the toxic masculinity that society enforces and enables. Stories about people of all backgrounds and identities who might suffer, but who don't have to suffer for the sake of the plot. We all have stories, and not one of them is the same, but we share a passion for love stories that brings us together in many different ways.
I love that. Thank you so much. That was such a good reading. I'm so excited for this because I'm Black and I think love matters. So I saw this book and I was like, yes, fully, I'm in. I need no more convincing. How are you doing, Jessica?
I'm doing all right. That's the first time since I recorded that section of the audiobook that I've read those words aloud. So it's always amazing to sort of like hear
How do you
what I have
feel?
to say.
How does it feel this time?
It feels pretty good. Every time I read it again, it's just sort of like, because when you write a book, you read it like 40 or 50 times probably.
No, I can only imagine. Oh my God. But like still it must feel like, does it feel new still? Like do you feel still like, oh wow, that feeling whenever you read it?
It does, because I obviously know what I wrote, but sometimes there's just like that little extra kick when I go back to some of my words and think, yeah, that's right, that's true.
Exactly. Well, I want to start off on this book. I mean, I feel like the obvious question to ask is what got you into the idea of Black Love Matters, but like I feel like that's just an obvious question. When you're Black, it's like that.
Mm.
That's you notice that's something that you see it, whether like it be popular, the missing of in popular culture and media and representation. But what made you feel like you were like, oh, this is something I need to write this book about now?
It's a combination of things. Just like in my personal reading and in my reading for Book Riot, I had sort of amassed this follow not mm, I didn't amass a following myself. I amassed a group of people that I was following who had really great things to say about it. And I was picking up new books by authors who were publishing either independently or coming into the traditional publishing world. And at the same time that was happening, I read Well Read Black Girl by Gloria Edom, which is a great anthology that is inspirational for this one as far as format goes, where she collected a bunch of voices about who wrote essays about the first time they saw themselves in fiction. And I was reading it and of course I identified with a lot of things as a cis Black woman, but there was still something missing. And part of that was sort of what I was talking about in the introduction, where we read Toni Morrison, we read Alice Walker, we read Jacqueline Woodson, and all of these authors bring something really important, but it's not quite the same as what I had been reading. So I sort of sat on that for a bit and thought, what would something like this look like from the point of view of people whose literary foundation is romance? And I sort of went from there.
And I mean, that's what an interesting perspective to take on this. How did that go from that point?
Well, I sat on it for a while. I sort of like when I finished Well Read Black Girl, I sort of wrote something for myself that was kind of like, these are my feelings about this and what it would look like. But I didn't really do anything with it. And then I was talking with a writer friend, and she was like, I think you've got something here. You should ask around or something. So I reached out to a Twitter mutual who happens to be an agent, and she had been an editor in publishing before, and was like, so I have this idea. Do you think it could like work? And she was like, yes, absolutely. Let's get going. So and then it went from there.
And I mean, the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, wow. And feel like that should be like, you should mark that in your calendar as a moment in time, because I mean, this book is one, gorgeous. I love the cover of it. It's such a great cover. But like two, you see that title and you're like, yes, I'm in. I'm drawn in. Because like I feel like Black love is underrepresented underrepresented in culture. It has been for so long. What when you were writing this, like, what were the biggest like deficits in that you saw in like in romance?
I think the biggest thing is the fact that there are so few books published, especially in traditional publishing, the big five, the smaller publishers that are technically called independent, but they're still huge compared to like the independent authors. There's such a small number comparatively of authors who are Black, who are writing about Black people, and especially who are writing about Black love in particular, because a lot of the best-selling novels that are coming out from Penguin, Random House, from HarperCollins, from all of those that are written by Black authors might have one Black character in the romantic relationship. So, and that's great. I love interracial romances. They're kind of my bread and butter. They're so fun. But there was something essential missing out of that combination. And there's a bookstore in Los Angeles, Studio City, LA, whatever, Southern California. I don't know what you want to call it in particular, the Ripped Bodice. And they do a study on basically racial representation in romance every year, and they've done it for 5 years. And there's been some conversation recently about how they do the study, because it's not like they have like a statistician who's doing it, but they're the only people who are really pulling together these numbers specific for romance. And I think in the total of the 5 years that they've been doing it, like 8% of authors publishing in romance traditionally, so not like self-published authors, which is a completely different ballgame, but at least in Big Five and all of their imprints and stuff, 8% of those were authors of color. So even if you then take out the other colors, Asian American authors, Indian authors, Latinx authors, that means even fewer than 8% are Black. So there's just like a complete dearth of representation, even though there are these big names that we see a lot, but it's the same like 5 or 6 names. So,
and I feel like that conversation recently has been like talked about in terms of like who is kind of gatekeeping that, who is making why aren't there more? And usually the answer to that is they're like, oh, we don't get enough submissions, we're not finding the authors. But I feel like that's, from your book, that's not true, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the part of it is that like there are definitely gatekeepers who say they're not getting enough submissions, but what they're really saying is they're not getting the submissions they want. So there are some people who've just decided to not even go that route. I saw a tweet either earlier today or recently that somebody wrote that was like, Black people in traditional romance are Black, and Black people in indie romance are Black. And they're like all the like capitalized with extra like emojis and that kind of thing. And you can kind of see, if you read like Christina C. Jones, who writes the chapter on indie Black romance in this book, there's this whole kind of feeling that you get reading some of the books that don't explain things about the Black experience, that dig really deep into that. And they don't submit to traditional publishers because they would have to like take out some of that experience in order to appeal to the greater audience or whatever you want to say.
No. And I mean, the greater audience, I mean, who is that really, right?
Yeah.
Who are they really trying to say? It's like the greater audience is always like, they're like the greater audience, the wider audience, the audience who is always like, I feel like it's always been, it's that thing they always say where it's like, well, it's always been that way. Where like, you know, they're always trying to cover up things that have been wrong by saying it's always been that way. Where it's like, it's always been white romance stories that have been pushed more. And so when they say the greater audience, it's the audience that has only ever seen these. Where like, you see I feel like it's almost every time there's like some romance that is not white, it's like comes out to like acclaim, like people love it. I'm thinking like cinema, especially, or in television, where it's like the Moonlight, the Crazy Rich Asians, the Aristotle and Dante when it came out, all of like, it's always like people love it, people want it, people on it, but like there's still, it's the gatekeepers that are like, but all right, that worked, but who knows if it'll work next time.
Right. Yeah.
And like, it's a lack of faith. And I mean, you have a stellar group of writers who come on to this book who are, you know, lending their voice to talk about it. What like similarities in terms of experience of researching this topic and, you know, writing on this topic have you found from all of these writers?
I would say that the biggest similarity that all of them have really shown is that, you know, they have figured out a way to either pull up a chair to the table or make their own table.
Yeah.
And have people come sit at it, because, you know, like the first essay in the book is by Beverly Jenkins, who is like the reigning monarch of Black romance. Like her first book was published in 1994, and she's just going for it. And she has a very specific, I hate to call it a niche, because Black historical romance should not be a niche, but like she is one of the very few people doing it.
She has like an empire built around her, like in this niche. Like sorry, go.
I mean, like, it's true.
yeah, it's it like, but no, it's, I mean, yeah, she did so much work there in that niche. What you were saying, sorry.
Oh yeah, so, you know, like, and from her up to like, I want to say Kosoko Jackson is probably the other end of that. You know, he is a Black queer man traditionally publishing a Black queer romance with Berkeley, who is, you know, they're my publishers. So I feel where it's like they're at the front of the game right now as far as like pushing new stories. But so you've got like these two ends of the spectrum, and then you've got all of these various people who've been working within the system for so long, just either doing it on their own or finding places to bring their stories to the forefront. And they've managed it. And, you know, the fact that this book is like half of the contributors to this book either have or on the way to having PhDs. And it's just like one of those things where it's yet another like bit of proof of that, like you got to work 10 times harder to do this kind of thing, because like these are like the brilliant minds
Mm-hmm.
of everything, and they are fighting for their cause basically as far as romance goes. And it's been so great to see how their expertise sort of combines with this idea of romance. And like, I hate the word elevate. It's one of my least favorite words reference to romance, because so many people talk about how this new book elevates the genre when like it doesn't need elevation. But
Yeah.
like, their work is really elevating everything we know about the genre, really. So it's so great to have been able to like pick their brains and see their
Mm-hmm.
words and go back and forth with them to really like understand
Mm-hmm.
their knowledge of this genre.
It's so funny you say that too, because I was just having a conversation with a friend about rom-coms
Mm-hmm.
and how like it's always about elevating the rom-com to make it like, now at least it's been like relevant to making them seem um more what's it, more to cinephiles, or more to the,
Mm-hmm.
pushing the envelope there, where it's like, no, rom-coms have been around, people love rom-coms, people love romance stories like that, like it doesn't need to be elevated. It's important. Everyone loves a
Mm-hmm.
romance. And on that, like, I what has drawn you to like the romance, and specifically, well, not specifically, but if you want to talk about specifically the Black romance genre, like what sparked that interest in it for you?
Well, I've always seen romances around. Like, I grew up
Mm,
in a matrilineal family. My mother, my grandmother, my aunt, they always had, those mass market paperbacks
yeah.
hanging out. So those were the first books that I picked up when I was too old for golden books. And of course, it was like, you're not quite old enough for these yet. Hang out for a
Mhm.
bit.
Yeah.
Um, but, like having these, you know, brilliant Black women in my own life reading romance, it
Mhm.
was like, okay, they see something in these, so I'm going to pick them up.
Mhm.
Um, and I realized in those early days that what I loved about them was the guarantee that it would end well. Because, like,
Mhm.
I don't mind a sad story, but if I'm going to pick up a romance, I know that people are going to fall in love.
Mhm.
There's going to be really interesting character development, and
Mhm.
then it's going to end with them still together and nobody will be sad.
And yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, that should be it. That
Yeah.
should be it. I mean, they have to be sad though to be happy, they have to, like, there has to be, doesn't there have to be like the little bit of sadness and
Yes.
fear right before the climax where everything's happy? And like that's my favorite part. It's like the roller coaster, like you have to drop to then rise back up, and
Yeah.
to it's the ride of that. How is that love and fascination for it evolved over the years, from like that young age to now?
It's taken a few interesting turns.
Mm.
I'll tell you one thing. In high school, I discovered the magical world of fan fiction when I was
Oh, oh
doing a
no.
research project on Jane Austen, of all people. Uh,
Oh no, that's, I feel, oof, yeah, I get
yeah.
that. I get that.
So like my like happy reading for a while was mostly on the internet, but of course it was
Hmm.
all the same thing. It was, there's this story, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know at the
Hmm.
end it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I even took that with me, and then I sort of
Hmm.
came back to romance after library school, because, well, for one thing, I got my first e-reader, and
Hmm.
there was all of this romance that I could
Hmm.
download on the Kindle app, and it was like, oh, I like these, I should check them out. And then I hate to say, the first time I picked up a Beverly Jenkins book, I was actually in my 20s. And it was like, how did it take me this long to find this? Why
Hmm.
didn't I see this before? Like, I don't,
Right.
like, maybe it was just, like going to the big box bookstore in high school looking for that kind of thing. It probably had like the African American section and the romance section, and I don't know where it would have been in between those two. But then between sort of exploring my library and seeing all of these things pop up on Kindle, and then like following people on Twitter, I sort of discovered like all of these different avenues of like the traditionally published, like Beverly Jenkins, and then people like Rebecca Weatherspoon and Alyssa Cole, and then people like Christina C. Jones and the whole empire that she's pulled together. And all of her friends who write amazing books. And then there's just like all of these avenues that I've been able to dig and dive down to sort of find new people who are writing amazing stories about Black people.
And I mean, we need more, and we need like, there's, I mean, these people are amazing. They're doing such good work, and like, you know, with the barest of bare like things to support them, like, because I mean, listen, Black art, it's not as supported as it needs to be, and it should be. But no, I mean, these heroes have done a lot of the hard work for a lot of, you know, the newer generation of writers too, to come through. And like, throughout your research, do you feel like hopeful for that, like hopeful for these new writers to be able to like maybe find an easier way to get their work in and, you know, tell their stories?
I do. You know, like I'm still sort of wondering what more traditional publishers can do besides bring in more Black editors and other people of color, you know, in the places where the gatekeeping happens. But I also see that whether, you know, even the independently publishing authors are getting their names out there and people are talking about them, and they can write the books that they really want to write while we wait for traditional publishing to get its act together. And you know, we're seeing more people across all of the various intersectionalities that we have as Black people, Black trans authors, more Black queer authors of all genders, you know, neurodivergent authors, all of that. They're sort of like, they're starting to pop up a little more, and eventually we'll be able to see them on both sides of the coin. So I'm hoping that's my vision for the future.
No, I mean, and I think I hope that's a vision that comes true. Because, you know, and one thing that always gets me with Black romance, and I mean, I think that's why a lot of publishers and a lot of places are hesitant to publish these books, is because they think that it's only for Black audiences. They think that if it's showing Black love, only people who will care about it are Black people. Where like, everyone can experience it. Everyone can read those books and feel like, oh, this is great. I love this story. I love the story, even though, like, I mean, the fact that, I mean, we have to do it all the time as Black people. We have to, the amount of white romance stories I have seen that I like, but also that I have read, is like so much. Whenever I feel like I ask white people the same thing, they're like, oh, I haven't read a lot of Black stories and Black like these specific types of Black stories. And I'm like, why? What is holding you back? Is that something that throughout your research you guys encountered too? Like a lot of white audience hesitation to read these novels as well?
That is definitely something, you know, like I haven't done a whole lot of broad empirical research. A lot of what all of us talk about is a little more close to home, but also, you know, I've done surveys for Book Riot type stuff and that kind of thing, but anecdotally, that has definitely been a huge issue of,
Mhm.
like the big can't relate that I mentioned in the introduction, where it's like, I mean, I have to relate to you because that's all I was able to read. That's
Exactly.
all I read most of the time. Like,
Right. Right.
so what is it about our experience that you don't think is the same as yours?
Mhm.
That, and why does it have to be the same?
Right. And it there's it's fair. It's only fair. Like,
Yeah.
see us on screen the way we've had to see you on screen. I want to, like, every time I'm like asked that and people are like, no, I haven't read that. I want to, like, Clockwork Orange their eyes open and be like, you're gonna watch and read and listen to all these things now. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
like force you to do this the way I was forced to. But that's not consensual, and I do not believe in any of that non-consensual forcing people to watch things that they aren't choosing, though, even though I think that they should. And that's a
Just,
PSA out to my listeners.
cheerful badgering. How about that?
Yes,
I
cheerful
will nag you
badgering.
until you finally pick it up and love it.
And I am great at that. I'm an annoying presence. So if you don't want me to come after you, read a Black romance book written by a Black author now, today at your local store. um your book also covers, which something that I feel like, especially in the Black community, is still, not talked about as much as it should be, but queerness too, in terms of Black
Mm-hmm.
romance. um can you talk about, like, that that in the book, Black queerness, Black trans stories in romance, how has that been, like, overlooked, and what is being, like, done to help, you know further that exposure is not the word I want to use, but it's the one I'm thinking, for the exposure of people seeing Black queerness and Black trans people in these stories too.
Sure. Yeah, I like, one of the things that I really wanted to make sure was represented in this book was
Mm-hmm.
the the Black queer story. And, in
Mm-hmm.
part that's because I myself am queer.
Mm-hmm.
And but I didn't want to take over that story. So I reached out to a few people who might have different experiences, and I was really happy to be able to get essays from Nicole M. Jackson, who
Mm-hmm.
writes as Katrina Jackson
Mm-hmm.
in her romance, and Kosoko Jackson. They are not related, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
um,
I mean,
and
people will think they are, right?
yeah, and also Deshaun Harrison, who is
Mm-hmm.
just a brilliant human, and their particular essay is like fantastically cerebral. It's probably the most theoretical essay that's
Mm-hmm.
included in this book, and it's so deep in the questions about desire and who can be desired and all of that, that comes from their experience being a trans, queer, disabled Black human.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
but and so, like, and Nicole and Kosoko are both authors of romance who had to find themselves, and there are sort of two different generations of Black queerness, bringing their own personal sort of experience to the question of finding that queer story. And it's a it's great to have so many different perspectives, because having a queer cis woman who talks about just first of all finding queerness in herself, and then finding it in romance, the genre in which she writes and in which people told her that it didn't exist. um
Yeah.
and then having like this brand new um romance author coming up and seeing sort of a whole different experience as a cis male Black author.
Mhm.
And then so it's just like there's so much to come out of their individual essays.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to how that broadens in the future, because like I know that we're seeing, not more and more and more. Like I wish it was more and more and more, because
Yeah.
I love seeing books from that experience, but like
Mhm.
definitely a few here and there who are not cisgender heterosexual authors writing
Yeah.
about Black love. And it's nice.
It's nice, and it's what we want. It's what we need.
It's what we need.
It's what we need. All right. Well, so this episode is actually going to be our Valentine's Day episode. It premieres on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And so for a fun thing I thought to do for our listeners, especially to get more, Black romance stories, seen and told, or seen and read by more people and talked about. And I mean, a perfect place to get more people is our listeners right here. Do you have any Black romance novels that you specifically want to recommend to our listeners right now?
There's always that question, and I'm always ready for it, and then I'm not.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So I definitely want to recommend, because we've talked about her like 5 times already, Beverly Jenkins.
Right.
Her newest book, Wild Rain, is like nothing I've read before. It's amazing how someone who's been writing for so long can just keep putting together these new stories, and they're just better and better and better and more different every time.
Wow.
So I definitely want to recommend that one, because it's fantastic. And one author that I have been sort of slowly making my way through their work is Nicole Falls, and she's one of the independent authors that I was talking about. So her books are blackety black, like so magically black. And the most recent one that I read is Shots Not Taken, and it's a basketball romance, and we get so few of those because people don't want to write about giant Black men. I mean, like, I feel like that's the only thing holding us back from actually being able to read more basketball romance.
No. I agree.
And it's an excellent book, and I have been enjoying it. I've been reading it a little slower because there are so many books. I gotta be honest, there's too many books.
Too many books.
Too many books. And then one author that I just want to sort of highlight, because I can't pick one, is Reese Ryan. And she actually writes mostly category romances through Harlequin. And I've been trying to sort of like highlight I've been trying to read more category romances, because there are some really great ones and they don't get as much press. And because they have a more ephemeral lifetime, I don't know, than some of these books, because Harlequin produces like a whole like 100 books a month or something. They don't get as much press when they come out. So she's got a bunch of really great books in the Harlequin Desire line, and I really enjoy her writing.
No, I mean, wow, what a listeners. I hope you wrote those down. Rewind, go back and listen, write them down, go read them. I know I have some romance listeners out there who are looking for, a romantic. Some of us are single, and I will admit I'm one of those people. And some of us, even us single people, we want some romance. Listen, go read one of these books and take a nice bath on Valentine's Day or any other day of the year that you are single in, or maybe you won't be, but you still, wanna have some romance in there. Go take a
Absolutely.
nice long bath, light some candles, get one of these books. I mean, you probably should do that before you take the bath and light the candles. But to each their own. To each their own. Go, and read. Do some something nice for yourself and read one of these books, because we all need some romance in our life.
Absolutely.
And we all need some Black romance in our life. Every one of you, no matter who you are, get some Black romance in your life. Jessica, this has been such a great episode of the podcast. I love Black love. So this is, it's fantastic to read a book that, focuses on that and talks about it in an honest and open way that I feel like will definitely help move the genre forward as we go on. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to talk about all of this stuff.
It's been great hearing you talk about this. To our listeners, you can go right now, right this second. I've seen it on the shelves and it is beautiful. You can run to your bookstore to go buy Black Lives Matter, Real Talk on Romance, Being Seen in Happily Ever Afters by Jessica P. Pryde. Right now at your bookstore. It's on display at SKYLIT Books right now. So you better go on over and get yourself a copy and really just learn about Black love, representation, and romance, and also about why it's important and why we need to read it, and maybe get some great recommendations for books in the future. Jessica, is there anything you'd like to say to our listeners in the independent bookstore community?
Yes. Thank you all for supporting this little book in particular. And I especially want to thank the independent bookstore folks who have been strong proponents of romance, whether no matter who's writing them, but especially romance by authors of color and Black romance in particular. If you have them, we will come. So
and that's the truth, and I want that on a shirt. I want that on it. I would sell it. I would be there. I would push it at the bookstore. No, thank you again, Jessica. This has been fantastic. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for listening, listening to this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're listening to this on Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day to you all. I will gladly be all of your Valentine's Day for the day if you need one. And if you don't, I'll still be that Valentine's Day person for you. So yeah, show someone you love them that day. But you have a great and wonderful day. Do something nice for yourself, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylitbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.